We spend so much time analyzing data and dissecting the exact mechanics of success. But honestly, sometimes the absolute most profound insights come from just looking at one single, undeniable human journey. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to break down the incredible story of a young guy named Noah. We're going to completely dismantle that whole overnight success illusion. This is literally the story of a poor boy who became a millionaire through sheer, unglamorous hard work. And look, by the time we wrap this up, the way you look at your own daily habits, and especially your failures, is going to fundamentally change.
17 bucks. I want you to really imagine that for a second. Picture being 18 years old, right on the edge of adulthood, and exactly $17 is literally all you have to your name. Noah had no rich parents to bail him out. He didn't have a network of powerful friends or fancy mentors. He was just a kid, standing outside in his neighborhood with 17 bucks in his pocket. And let's be real, when you start with that little, the world tends to make some pretty harsh assumptions about where you're going to end up.
And society definitely wasn't shy about sharing those assumptions with him. People literally told this kid, right to his face, "You'll stay poor forever." Just think about the psychological weight of those words when you're already struggling just to get by. Society places these massive, heavy expectations on folks who start at the absolute bottom. But here's the thing, Noah's story isn't a tragedy, because jump ahead a decade and he was a millionaire. This isn't a story about getting lucky or hitting the jackpot. It's about what happens when one ordinary person absolutely refuses to read the script society handed them.
So let's get into section 1, the reality of starting and growing up in survival mode. Noah was an ordinary boy from a totally ordinary neighborhood. His dad worked these incredibly long, exhausting hours, and his mom did absolutely everything she could just to keep the family afloat. But the math just never worked out. Money was always tight. Every single month wasn't about living, it was just about surviving. It was this constant, grinding anxiety just trying to make it to that next paycheck.
Then there was this one pivotal moment that kind of changed the whole trajectory. Noah's sitting in a classroom, and the teacher's doing that classic thing, going around asking the room, "What do you want to become?" Kids are yelling out the usual stuff, right? A doctor, an athlete, a pilot. But Noah is just sitting there quietly. And when the spotlight finally hits him, he simply says, "I want freedom." Man, his classmates laughed at him. They actually laughed. But Noah didn't even care, because in that exact moment, sitting in that echoing classroom, it hit him like a ton of bricks. Nobody was coming to save him. If his future was going to look any different, he was going to have to build it with his own two hands.
Moving right along to section 2, the decision to change and learning what others ignored. Look, once you realize no one is coming to save you, the whole momentum shifts. You have to take complete 100% ownership of your future. Just wishing for things to get better? Yeah, that doesn't work. You need a rock-solid strategy.
And for Noah, that strategy meant a drastically stark shift in his daily behavior. While most people were spending hours upon hours just mindlessly scrolling through their phones, desperately looking for a distraction from reality, Noah made a very deliberate choice. He took those exact same hours and poured them into learning. He completely buried himself in books. He studied business, communication, sales, and the actual mechanics of how money works. He basically stopped distracting himself from his current reality and started gathering the actual tools he'd need to build a brand new one.
Now, what did that actually look like? In practice, it was this wildly unglamorous, totally grueling routine. Morning meant school. The afternoon was packed with a part-time job he went to immediately afterward just to survive. And night? Well, when everyone else was resting or out having fun, he was grinding, learning those high-value skills. And honestly, here is the absolute hardest part of this whole phase. He did this for months, day in and day out, with absolutely zero immediate results. No sudden wealth, no viral moments, just pure, exhausting effort.
But the secret sauce here is a margin of just 1%. Noah forced himself to improve by this tiny, seemingly insignificant fraction every single day. 1% better at sales today, 1% better at communication tomorrow. It's the whole idea of compounding effort. And here's a reality check. Noah didn't do this because he just loved the thrill of discipline. He wasn't some superhuman cyborg. He did it because he profoundly, deeply hated staying stuck. That massive frustration, he flipped it into the fuel that gave him his daily edge.
Which brings us to section 3, the unglamorous work and failure after failure. Brace yourself, because this is where the journey gets pretty dark. It exposes a really harsh reality of entrepreneurship that, frankly, most people just aren't prepared to handle.
So Noah takes all this new knowledge, all these shiny new skills, and he launches his very first small project. And it totally fails. Okay, right? Brush it off, keep going. He tries his second business idea. Completely tanks again. He pushes through the frustration,
gathers himself, and launches a third idea. And yep, that one fails too. I mean, think about that brutal string of consecutive defeats. It got so bad that people around him actually started talking. Even his close friends pulled him aside and gently suggested, "Hey Noah, maybe this whole success thing just isn't for everyone." And the really tragic part, for a brief moment, sitting all alone, Noah actually believed them. He had officially hit rock bottom.
But then, right in the middle of that mess, he asked himself this incredibly profound question. He thought, wait, what if success is literally just surviving longer than others? Like, what if it isn't about being the absolute smartest or the fastest, or having this genius idea right out of the gate? What if it's purely just a game of endurance? This huge, perspective-shifting realization was the only thing that kept Noah from throwing in the towel. He realized he didn't actually have to win today. He just had to absolutely refuse to quit.
Okay, Section 4, the breakthrough. Solving problems, not chasing money. Armed with this totally new mindset of endurance, Noah made a massive strategic pivot. He completely stopped looking for fast money. He dropped the whole search for shortcuts or secret cheat codes because, spoiler alert, they don't exist. Instead, he just started focusing on actually helping small businesses. He started solving real problems for real people.
And this is where you see the absolute magic of compounding in action. He helped one single customer, and he knocked it out of the park. Then he got 2 customers. Then that slowly grew to 10. His income was increasing, sure, but it was slow and steady. And here's the kicker. Instead of going out and buying flashy stuff, he took that money and reinvested it directly back into himself. He learned even more. He worked even harder. It was incredibly slow, steady, and built 100% on a foundation of providing actual value.
That relentless effort? It started compounding over the years in a big, big way. By age 21, he had managed to save his first $10,000. By 24, after multiplying his skills and expanding his business, he hit his first $100,000. And then, by age 28, exactly 10 years after standing on that street corner with just $17 to his name, Noah became a millionaire. It is such a satisfying timeline to look at, but it is absolutely vital to remember that literally years passed between these milestones without a single shortcut. Just continuous, boring, daily improvement.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 5, the invisible journey and what people didn't see. Because let me tell you, once Noah hit that millionaire status at 28, the world suddenly paid attention. But human nature's kind of funny, isn't it? We only ever look at the finish line. We rarely ever watch the marathon.
This is exactly the illusion we've got to unlearn today. The outside world looked at Noah and saw this sudden success. They assumed he just figured out some clever trick or got insanely lucky. But the reality, the invisible journey, that was built on a massive mountain of rejected ideas. It was built during those lonely, totally exhausted nights. His path was absolutely saturated with fear and doubt and so many moments where he desperately just wanted to quit. Look, success always looks sudden to the outside world, but the truth is, it's built quietly, in the shadows, every single day.
Years later, an interviewer actually asked Noah, "What changed your life?" And Noah just smiled and gave this incredible, profound answer. He said, "I stopped asking how fast and started asking how long I could keep going." Guys, that is the exact mindset shift that changes the whole game. If you are constantly checking your watch, just waiting for the payoff, the frustration is eventually going to break you. But if you start measuring your success by your sheer capacity to endure, you become absolutely unstoppable.
So here is the brutal, yet incredibly empowering truth of this explainer. Hard work does not guarantee instant success. It just doesn't. You can do everything perfectly right and still fail 3 times in a row, exactly like Noah did. But quitting guarantees failure. It locks it in. It makes failing a total mathematical certainty. Your future simply does not care where you begin. It only cares whether or not you continue. So as we wrap this up, I want you to take a hard, honest look at your own habits today. Are you scrolling or are you learning? Are you desperately looking for shortcuts or are you out there solving problems? And most importantly, when things get incredibly difficult, do you look for an exit or do you look for a way to survive just one day longer?